Hey Studio Bounce, it's Flava D. Welcome to my humble abode. Come through.
Hey Studio Bounce, I'm Flava D. I'm a DJ producer based in London. I make everything from bassline, garage, house, hip hop, everything, depending on what mood I'm in. This is my studio right here. We're gonna show you kind of how I build a beat and why I choose certain elements to go into the structure and yeah, just how I do things. So here we are, this is my setup. It's pretty simple. I've got my laptop, my monitors, I've got a few synth things around here. So yeah, I mean, I mainly make my music on the go, on trains and planes sometimes, but when I come home, I like to test whatever I've made and test it on the monitors here and just make sure like all the levels sound right and what I need to adjust. I would like to get a studio properly one day, you know, have more of a space where I can just like isolate myself. But right now it's like I travel a lot with gigs and stuff, so it's not really important for me to have, you know, like a professional type studio. When I next move, I'm looking to sort of like secure a space where I can actually build up like my synth collection. I want to like, you know, put all the things on the walls and soundproof it, like do it like properly. But yeah, this is just like how I like to work. Right now I make more beats that I guess are sample based rather than, you know, working physically in a studio with a singer, but it's actually something I'm going to venture out into because I'm currently starting my debut album, which is going to be very vocal based. I got into producing when I was 16 and that began, so at the time I was working in a record shop and my boss had a copy of Ableton, which is what I'm using right here, and yeah, I just said to him, you know, what is that you're using? And I've always wanted to make beats and have my own program. So yeah, he gave me a copy, I took it home, and then yeah, I was just fixated on it for, you know, I never went out, I was never drinking or anything like that. I was just like a loner making beats. So, and that carried on for about 2 to 3 years of me just teaching myself the basics. And then I started off making, I think it was more like bass lines, so things like when like T2 and, you know, bassline had its really big stage of being popular. I was really into that, so I started off making that sort of stuff. And then I would venture out into like hip hop instrumental stuff because I listened to a lot of J Dilla, Pete Rock. And I was making everything from like soulful hip hop to dance music that would be anything from like trance, garage, bassline. And then I think it was like around 2008, I started making grime as well. And I was very heavily involved in that scene for a good few years. And then I got back into garage at around 2011. And then ever since then, I think I've just been more hands-on in that kind of sound. So I'm currently working on my debut album. It's a very special project for me because I look at an album as like a musical diary and a way to express yourself like musically and be very free without being in a box. So my album's going to be very diverse. I'm going to have styles that I haven't released before. Like I'm making like drum and bass. There's going to be like ambience on there. There's going to be an R&B track. Just different types of house. It's not going to be so club orientated. Yeah, so it's going to be like a good experiment for me as well, and it's going to be very heavily based with vocalists too, which is something I haven't done before. And also, other projects I'm working on is with TQD. So if you're not aware, that's myself, Royalty, DJ Q, and we've been doing music together for a couple years. We've been touring quite heavily together as well. So yeah, we've just been getting ready for festival season, and yeah, we've got a couple tracks that we've been working on that we're going to get ready for gigs coming up. And also myself and the boys, TQD, we have our Radio 1 residency as well. So to keep it like interesting for our show, which is once a month, we try and make like a brand new track leading up to each show that we premiere. So we currently working on a TKD track. So how that works is, because it's hard to have this like all in one place, because obviously Q's from North, I'm here, Mark would be Southampton. So we've been sending like stems and stuff. So yeah, for example, like Q will send me like a vocal chop, then I'll hear it, I'll get an idea, I'll make a melody, send that to Royalty, he might add some drums or bass, and then yeah, so we've been trying to do that for each show, and then it's something for like the fans as well, just new material. So my studio must-haves are Himalayan salt lamp, because I find that it just gets me in the mood, and I make beats a lot in the dark, and I just find that it helps me shut off from everything. And then like a Himalayan salt lamp is just kind of like therapeutic in some way. Also, like, I like to drink Baileys sometimes, or a green tea. What helps me make beats as well is like a good view. Anywhere I am, like even if I'm on a plane or there's like a sunset, you can see out the window, it changes the whole style of what beat I would make compared to if I'm in a busy, loud place like in London, for example. I like having my cats around because I'm a crazy cat lady. Just comfort for me is what helps me make beats. Okay, so my setup, I have a MacBook Pro and I have a UAD Apollo twin sound card. That's good to mix down stuff. So so when I make beats on the go, when I come home, that's what I would play my sounds through, and then that's when I can go and correct anything that needs like enhancing or just making things fit, making them sound more club ready. I've got Yamaha HS8s for my monitors. You know, they're not too expensive, not too cheap. They're kind of like a really good speaker if you're starting out. Yeah, they work good for me. I have a keyboard, MIDI keyboard, which is a Novation Bass Station 2. So it's really good to plug in, and if you want to create a bass on it from scratch, or you just want to plug it in just to play keys from whatever you're using on your Ableton or whatever program you use. I've got a mic, which is this. It's a Shure mic. It's really good if you're on the go. It's a USB port, so if I want to capture like a background noise to put into my beat, whether it's like just trains or cars, anything to like make like a level of ambience in the background of a track, it's really good. It's not too heavy. Yeah, all my headphones I use are Sennheisers, and that's pretty much what I would take on the go other than my monitors, and that works for me. Software-wise, I use Ableton. I've tried other programs like Logic, Fruity, but I just find for me Ableton works because it's quite simple in terms of dragging samples in and getting a quick result. Okay, so the track I'm going to play is a track called Love Like This. It features a SWV vocal. This is kind of like a club tool, something ready for the clubs. I made this actually on the plane on my way to Canada last month when I was starting a tour. And it's just kind of like a summery type bassline feel. It kind of works well in a peak time set as well as, you know, early hours of a club. And yeah, I'm going to play some of it, and then I'll break down the structure of it and what I began first, and why I chose certain sounds over other sounds. So I'll just drop this before it kicks in. Okay, so that's the track. And so when I made this, I think I actually started this with the drums. So I've organised this. I've got like my kick, my effects, bass skin, I've got sub, melodies, more bass sounds, vocal, clap, and then I've got hats. So it starts off pretty simple just with drums. And then I've got like a string in there too. So what I did was, like, to make it sound kind of skippy, I added some percussion in there. So I'm going to just play the hats by themselves. So it's got quite a lot of layers. You've got like hats, you've got a few levels of hats, you've got kind of like an offbeat kick that I took the high end out of, and I just make it sound. Yeah, it just kind of gives it more of like a funky feel. And then you've got these. So I have probably about 6 or 7 levels of hats in there. I've got my claps. For these, it's 2 different hats just stacked on top of each other. Just makes it sound fuller. And just, you know, it cuts through the beat more sometimes when you just stack sounds on top of each other, and it just gives it more of a unique sound as well, rather than just taking a sound out of a sample pack and then, you know, put it in your project. I've got the strings, which I played, got my kick. So the kick is something I made in a plugin actually called Sonic, which is a really good software by Nicky Romero. It's really good to... I've got my cat on a scratch post. Yeah, it's really good to make a kick from scratch, all different kinds of kicks, so you can customize that. And then a few bars in, I've got melodies that come in too. So for this, if you use Ableton, then you'll be familiar. There's this operator plugin that's built into it, and it's really good for making synths and melodies, all that kind of stuff. So for this, it's this is actually massive as well. So this is a square lead with some reverb added on, and I use a lot of the effects I use in my beats, especially when I'm on the go, is pretty much Ableton stock stuff. So this is like Ableton EQ3, Ableton reverb. So it's got some really good stuff in there. I've got my main melody keys are from FM8. So for this, it's pretty much all drawn in melodies. And another thing I like to do is, like, on the build up of a drop, I like to add a lot of effects, like swish effects. Like, the more you add before a drop, the bigger the impact of when it does drop. So I'm just going to play it again before, so you can hear, then I can go through what is actually in that. So you would have heard in that I have kicks that build up, and then eventually I actually take the low end out of the kicks. So I'll just play that separately. So the reason for that is when it comes to like a big drop and there's more effects and swishes going on, it kind of gives it more headroom to create. I think it's just with drop, you just want the biggest impact. You take sounds out and then it's like boom, and it all comes together again. And a lot of my beats, I have like a style where I often have like the 2-bar or the 4-bar where I'll just take the drums out and then it kind of drops. So it's like when you play it in a club, it kind of takes the crowd by surprise a bit, and then it's like you just hear the bass and then it just drops. It's kind of like, it makes it sound more interesting, I think, and then it all comes in. So what I did for my bass line in this, I'll just go back to the first section. So the bass line I separated from the sub. So that the reason I do that as well, because, you know, when you want to mix down your beats, you want to focus on the low end, make it sound fat, and then it, you know, sometimes a kick and the bass can clash, and it's kind of like a war of like making it work without suffocating the kick, or the kick's too loud for the bass. So you separate the bass line and the bass skin. So the bass I have here is these are made from Serum actually. And that's 4 different bass is like, so 4 different layouts. So the first one, and then you've got this one down here that I took all the low end out of. So with that, I would play the sub with it too. So if I mute everything and then I play, you can hear the sound that I'm trying to get with it, with the sub. So, and then without the sub. So yeah, that's what I did with the bass. I'll play some more of this. I've got the vocal, which I also chopped up, which is a very signature type thing to do with a garage style beat. So you're taking a cappella. So in this case, it's a SWV. So I'll just play that, and then you can see here I've got a load of chops going on. So what I did was, like, all these are parts of the a cappella. So if I extend one, this is like, but I took one particular bit, pitched it a little bit, and then, so I kind of just chopped bits that I would listen to it and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take that bit, take this bit, this might sound better pitched up, or I'm going to shorten this bit, and then make it fit. And then what I did after that was I added, I took the low end out, which I do quite a lot. I added slight reverb, and then there's also a ping pong effect. So all these are stock Ableton. So if you've got Ableton, you can pretty much do everything I've just shown you in terms of effects. So this is the delay I've got. Just kind of adds, makes it sound more open and wider. So that's pretty much how I would do a structure of my track. Is, you know, usually a 16 to start with, build up, focus on my drop. First drop, then I would usually have like a bridge or a breakdown, and then it will build up into the second drop, and then work on my outro. And I mean, it's all personal preference, but for me, I find that that works for me, and especially in the scene that I'm involved in, that's kind of like the usual structure of a track, and it's usually like 4 minutes, 5 minutes long. Yeah, just every track, every different style of music you make, it really varies. Thank you, Studio Bounce, for hanging out with me. You're distracting me, you're so cute. Thank you, Studio Bounce, for hanging out with me and my cats. I'm Flava D, and if you want to check out anything coming up from me in the future, you can check me soundcloud.com/Flava_D.